college football starting up this weekend as well. A couple of teams are getting out there. I think Florida State playing Georgia Tech. And what's his name? DJ Ukulele. Ukulele. I still can't pronounce this guy's name after all these years. In fact, he went to John Bosco Prep out in California. He was a 5-star quarterback. As a sophomore, he beat out the senior quarterback who ended up going to Iowa State. I thought he would be special. He goes to Clemson, doesn't do anything. He goes to Oregon State, does a little bit better, but still does nothing. Now he's at Florida State. This is what we have now. 3 teams in 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. This is the climate we have right now. And it leads us into this upcoming season where you now have Oregon, the top 3 teams at least so far. You have Georgia and Ohio State, and I think Texas is 3, and Oregon is 3, and then Texas. Man, and Texas with those running back problems we talked about last week kind of drops them maybe a little bit, but I still think they can rely on the running backs they have. But Dylan Gabriel, that's the guy we're talking about here as being a Heisman Trophy candidate and the leading Heisman Trophy candidate right now for Oregon after leaving Oklahoma before he left Central Florida, Oklahoma, now Oregon. This is what we have.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's too early to be talking Heisman. Not a single game has been played yet. I know. I'm just saying. I don't know. I can't get into that. I mean, unless you say, "Hey, we're gonna make some predictions," well, then I'll do that. But
we'll have to make some predictions anyway.
I'm not talking hypothetically, right off the cuff.
But with this, I'm more looking at the way things are now in college football with players. You just can't guarantee a player is going to come out of high school and finish with your school. You know, what is the reason why they're not going to stay with your school? Is it all about, man, I can't get an opportunity because this guy has favoritism and I know I'm better than him? Or is like, coach is probably not going to give me the opportunity. I'm going to ignore I'm not as good as a starter, so I'll just go somewhere else. And this isn't your daddy's college football anymore. This is your grandchild's or great-grandchild's college football where everybody's out there. Jalen Moreau is actually getting a lot of action right now in Vegas. He's getting the most bets on him in terms of being a Heisman Trophy candidate from Alabama. I don't know about that. The reason why I don't know, even though he did better from what he started off with last year into what he ended up as, a much better passer than he was in the beginning, but that didn't take much. He's still a runner. But you do have Kalen DeBoer coming from Washington who helped Michael Penix become a real quarterback, getting drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Now Jalen Moreau, the reason why I don't look at him winning the Heisman, because I think Ty Simpson, his backup, is on his tail and could overtake him at some point in the season.
That remains to be seen, but based off his improvement last year and, you know, how he ended the season, he was playing really well. I can see a lot of money going on Moreau. Like you expect him to improve during the offseason and be better this year. Maybe think people are thinking DeBoer is more of a quarterback guy than Saban was.
I think so, Saban's a defensive dude.
Exactly. So maybe they're thinking DeBoer is going to do for him what he did for Penix. So
yeah, I'm thinking so.
And I'm sure his odds are pretty good. You know, you're saying Gabriel's the top choice.
The top dog. That surprised me a bit, but
so
he did some things.
His odds got to be pretty good unless, you know, all that money's coming in. Odds are going to change. But I can see it.
But Kalen DeBoer, being that offensive mind that he is, and we learned that last season, even though if you watch Washington, you saw how they gotten better every time he was there. I think, 3 years that he was there, they gotten better significantly and got themselves into the national championship game, just getting one loss last season. But look at the way they had done it by getting a quarterback from Indiana who was just a quarterback, goes over there, and Kalen DeBoer is a big reason why he has the success he has, getting himself an opportunity as a first round draft pick in the NFL. And you look at some of these other coaches out there, and looking at Dan Lanning up there in Oregon. I mean, that's why I think Dylan Gabriel has his opportunities, because of Dan Lanning's offense. We already saw what he had done with Bo Nix, but that also came with a lot of experience with Bo Nix. But now we have quarterbacks with a whole lot of experience. We're still in that area where people get that COVID year. So they did get that extra experience they wouldn't have gotten before.
That's true. One place I can think of where they don't have quarterback experience is Lincoln, Nebraska.
But
They
they made your
named
boy the
Dylan
starter.
Raiola, the starter.
God, yo, that it did surprise me, but you know how much you have to show in order to get that opportunity, because some of these coaches, even though we as fans and people as recruit Knicks, they know these players or think they know these players, and you're like, man, he should go on there and do this and that. These head coaches don't really let that get to them because they go into the film room, they watch these guys, they know everything they need to know about these players in every transaction that has to do with the position. So when they pick these guys, it's because they truly believe it. It's very rare, especially even today, that the boosters or alumni is going to be the reason why, like in the program, you better start that quarterback. Nah, it doesn't happen like that with these guys, especially with Matt Rule. I think he's putting together something well enough to where they let him coach, and whatever boosters are going to do, stick to the NIL and bring in other players here. Let him do the coaching.
I don't know. I tend to think the boosters want Dylan to be the quarterback. I mean, you saw the quarterback play last year.
Obviously, why they wanted him to be, but if he did something,
Harburg did a decent job, but he's not a passer. They would have to bust out the power I and triple option, for him to really excel. And that's not the offense Matt Rule's going to run.
Nah.
So yeah, it makes sense that Dylan Raiola is the quarterback.
I just want to see
what's crazy. I don't know if it's crazy, to your point. I think him and Adrian Martinez are the only quarterbacks to start the season as freshmen. Tommy Frazier, I think he became a starter after injuries, maybe the third or fourth game. But
I remember hearing Tommy here in Florida. Well, hearing about him in Florida. I wasn't down here at the time. Yeah. I remember hearing about Tommy, option quarterback.
Yeah, him and Adrian Martinez, Raiola are the only quarterbacks named starters to start the season.
So was Adrian Martinez a true freshman, or was he a redshirt freshman?
No, he was a true freshman. Well, that's the other thing. True freshman.
Yeah, that matters, man. I mean, that matters so much, because even Mike Vick was not a true freshman when he was doing that insane rendition of being Superman, playing for Virginia Tech, going into the national championship game where everybody learned about him. I remember back when he struggled against Temple at the old Vet Memorial Stadium in Philadelphia in a rainy day, and had to make a big play in order to pull that game off that same season. But yeah, looking at these true freshmen, I'm even more curious now and wanted to see Dylan Raiola and see what Coach Rule had seen in this true freshman, because I've seen so many true freshmen who were so highly heralded coming into the college game. And man, I know the expectation shouldn't have been there, but
it's a big risk, man.
It's like, man,
it's a big risk, because if things don't go well, risk. And then you got to pull him, now what happens to his confidence?
His confidence, yep.
And then do you pull him for the rest of the season or just a couple of games? I mean, look at Jeff Sims. He wasn't a freshman. He got pulled and he was done. He deserved to get. He
deserved it, bro. I don't know how he would make the team after watching him play. I'm like, Georgia Tech doesn't throw the ball that much, and he was over there, So why are you bringing him over here if you have any idea of reinventing the forward pass? Because he doesn't do that well. And he proved it. See what I told y'all? And he had to go back into the transfer portal. How about this? Get out of the country. Get out of here with that.
Is he at another school? I'm not even.
I think he's at another school. And those suckers have him. I can't remember which school he's at. I don't think I need to remember. But for real, Chris Leak.
He was a turnover machine, man.
Oh, he was terrible. Terrible, man. Even the running part he was supposed to be good at was mediocre. I mean, he broke some decent ones, but bro, after you broke the decent ones and started throwing again, you just put yourself at a negative again. But Chris Leak was the one I was thinking about, coming out of Independence High School, being highly heralded, Gatorade Player of the Year twice in North Carolina, coming to the University of Florida. To this day, I still think he threw the best spiral of anyone I've ever seen in high school coming into college. And not even he was able to do that well. I mean, as well as I was expecting. Brock Berlin, another guy who came out of New Orleans with that huge success coming out of high school and came to Florida, didn't do anything, went down to Miami, did even less. I mean, it was just a mess. So
what did Tebow do as a freshman?
Oh, Tebow. See, the good thing about Tebow is he had Chris Leak, who was now seasoned. They won that national championship together because of that. Because I tell people, you couldn't have won that national championship without both. You had to have both. You couldn't have done it with only Chris Leak. You couldn't have done it with only Tim Tebow because he didn't have the experience. When you have those two coming together, playing the way they had played, Chris Leak now figuring it out, at least on the college level, and getting the ball to the players he needed to, who had excellent ability, like Percy Harvin. I mean, he was exceptional. And then Tim Tebow coming in at the time he needed to on the short yards that you knew Chris Leak couldn't run. You put him down there by the goal line. You let him jump up against LSU, do the jump pass and get the touchdown, that kind of thing. Chris Leak wasn't going to fool anybody on. That's what they needed each other for, and that's how they got that national championship. So, yeah, Tim Tebow still got a lot of attention because he did some things, especially on the ground. Fooled someone on occasion throwing the ball, but Chris Leak, it was definitely, when you knew that a pass needed to be thrown, it was Chris Leak throwing that pass 90% of the time, if not 95. But, and who else? Well, I'm skipping all over. Carson Beck is number 2. Carson Beck is number 2. And, man, the thing with Carson Beck is he number 2 because he's that good, or is he number 2 because he's on the team?
He's the quarterback of Georgia.
That's what I'm thinking. But at the same time, I've seen that not incremental improvement, but exponential improvement from quarterback from one year to the next, because I remember specifically Matt Jones, when he had his chances at Alabama before his senior year, I was like, man, he's a Jacksonville guy. I watched him play in high school. In fact, I'm watching his alma mater, Bowles High School, play tomorrow. He probably going to watch him too, because the Jaguars are on the road, so no, he won't be watching. But anyway, and I remember watching him, I was like, man, he's terrible. Oh, man, I hope he don't make Jacksonville look bad. And for like 2 years when he had his opportunities, he was trash. And his senior year, now he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. His teammate ended up getting the Heisman, but he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. And he showed that real huge improvement, but he also had all-world players around him, which isn't different from what Georgia has right now around Beck.
Yeah, again, we talked about this before, that usually the quarterback on the best team gets a lot of love for Heisman votes.
Yep.
And I think that's all that is. If Carson Beck was at a different school, if he was at Georgia Tech, would he be anywhere near?
Oh, no way, because he'll have to run, first of all, because Georgia Tech isn't trying to throw a forward pass. They haven't done that since Joe Hamilton. The Joe Hamilton days when he was throwing 300 yards.